presentation focus on trade wars and global economic stability. US versus China versus Malaysia and Vietnam. This study explores how the US-China trade war, which began with tariff and trade restriction, has evolved into an expanded geopolitical and supply chain issue affecting global economic stability. We selected United States and China as the main actor of these conflicts, while Malaysia and Vietnam are included as Asian economies affected through trade diversion and supply chain relocation. The objective is to analyze this impact comparatively and understand how different economic structures shape winners and losers in global trade.
Hi, my name is Farah Naghumaira binti Suhaizad. For our study, we applied 4 key economic theories. First, the comparative advantage theory explains that countries specialize in products they can produce more efficiently. This helps explain why Vietnam focuses on labor-intensive manufacturing, while Malaysia has strengths in electronics and semiconductors. Second, the Heckscher-Ohlin theory states that countries export goods based on their abundant resources. Vietnam benefits from its large labor force, while Malaysia benefits from its skilled workforce and industrial infrastructure. Third, the new trade theory highlights the importance of technology, economies of scale, and multinational corporations. During the US-China trade war, many firms adopted the China Plus One strategy by relocating production to Malaysia and Vietnam. Finally, the global value chain theory explains how production activities are connected across countries. The trade war disrupted supply chains and encouraged firms to diversify their production locations. These theories guide our analysis by helping us understand the impacts of the US-China trade war on trade flows, investment relocation, and supply chain changes in Malaysia and Vietnam.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. I will explain about methodology section. For this study, we use a comparative qualitative analysis to examine the impact of the US-China trade war on global economic stability. This method focuses on understanding and comparing economic situation rather than using complex mathematical calculation. It allows us to analyze how different countries are affected by trade tension, tariff, and supply chain disruptions. Through this approach, we can identify similarities and differences in the experience of each country. Next, we selected 4 countries, namely the United States, China, Malaysia, and Vietnam. The United States and China were chosen because they are the main countries involved in the trade war. Meanwhile, Malaysia and Vietnam were selected because they are developing Asian countries that have been indirectly affected by the conflict. Many companies have shifted their investment and production from China to Southeast Asia, creating both opportunities and challenges for this country. This comparison helped us understand the impact of the trade war from both developed and developing country perspective. For data collection, we use secondary data from reliable international organizations such as the World Bank, IMF, WTO, and the United Nations. These sources provide important information on trade performance, GDP growth, foreign direct investment, tariff, and global economic trends. We also refer to academic journals and research articles to strengthen our understanding of the topic and support our analysis. Finally, our study applied 3 analytical approaches. First is comparative analysis, where we compare the economic impacts of the trade war across the 4 countries. Second is trend analysis, which help as observes change in export, import, and foreign investment before and after the trade war. Third is the case study approach, where we examine real-world examples such as the China Plus One strategy, the growth of Vietnam manufacturing sector, and Malaysia's semiconductor industry. These approaches help us better understand how trade wars influence global economic stability and international trade.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. I will present the comparative analysis of the United States and China during the US-China trade war. For the United States, the trade war began when tariffs were imposed on Chinese imports to protect domestic industries and reduce dependence on China. However, the tariffs also increased import prices and production costs for American businesses and consumers. As shown in Figure 1, imports from China declined after the implementation of tariffs, reflecting changes in trade patterns and supply chain diversification. Overall, while the policy aimed to protect domestic industries, it also created economic costs and supply chain disruptions. For China analysis, the trade war resulted in declining imports from the United States due to retaliatory tariffs. Chinese firms began sourcing products from alternative countries such as Brazil and Germany, leading to trade diversion. At the same time, China expanded trade relations with Asian and other partners to reduce reliance on the US market. Figure 2 shows the decline in imports from the United States after 2018. Overall, China responded through diversification strategies and strengthened its resilience against external trade shocks. In summary, both countries were negatively affected by the trade war. The US faced high costs and supply chain disruptions, while China experienced declining imports from the US but responded through trade diversification and stronger regional cooperation.
Next, I will discuss how Malaysia and Vietnam benefited from the US-China trade war. For Malaysia, the main advantage comes from its strong semiconductor and electronic industry. Malaysia contributes 13% of global semiconductor packaging, assembly, and testing activities. The country has attracted major foreign investment from companies such as Intel and Infineon due to its skilled workforce, developed industrial infrastructure, and established position in the global technology supply chain. However, Malaysia still faces challenges such as dependence on imported semiconductor materials and the need for greater investment in research and development. In contrast, Vietnam has benefited through labor-intensive manufacturing and export-oriented growth. Many multinational companies relocated production from China to Vietnam because of its lower labor costs, large workforce, and strategic location. However, Vietnam remains highly dependent on foreign-owned firms and imported intermediate goods, limiting its domestic value-added creation. When comparing Malaysia and Vietnam, both countries have gained from the China Plus One strategy, where companies diversified production away from China. However, their roles in the global value chain are different. Malaysia specializes in higher value semiconductor and advanced manufacturing activities, supported by skilled labor and stronger technological capabilities. As a result, Malaysia achieved higher productivity and greater value-added production. On the other hand, Vietnam focused more on labor-intensive assembly and manufacturing activities. Its competitive advantage comes from lower production costs, a large workforce, and close proximity to China. Overall, these differences can be explained by comparative advantage and factor endowment. Malaysia benefits from technology and industry expertise, while Vietnam benefits from the cost efficiency and location advantages. Both countries have successfully attracted foreign investment, but future growth will depend on strengthening local capabilities and reducing reliance on imported inputs.
Based on this study, the US-China trade war has important policy implications for many countries. For the United States, relying only on tariff is not enough. Instead, the government should focus on innovation, strategy industries, and improving technology to stay competitive. For China, the priority is to reduce its dependence on a single export market by expanding trade partnership, developing its own technology, and increasing domestic consumption. For Malaysia, the opportunity from companies relocating their supply chains should be supported by stronger industrial policies. This includes investing in research and development and advanced manufacturing, skilled workers, and local supplies network. For Vietnam, the focus should be on upgrading manufacturing capability, encouraging technology transfer, and investing in infrastructure and education. Finally, Asian countries should strengthen regional cooperation by improving supply chain integration and trade procedure. Overall, innovation, diversification, and regional collaboration are the key to achieving long-term economic resilience and sustainable growth.
From implementation perspective, effective policy requires coordination between governments and industry. Short-term action include improving custom transparency, monitoring trade risk, and ensuring compliance with rules of origin. Medium-term strategy focus on strengthening local supplier networks, attracting quality FDI, and developing skilled labor for higher value industry. Long-term success depends on innovation, automation, and regional supply chain integration. However, challenges such as lack of skills, reliance on imports may limit implementation effectiveness. In conclusion, the US and China trade war has significantly reshaped global trade patterns and supply chain structures. While the US and China face direct tariff and efficiency losses, Malaysia and Vietnam benefit from trade diversion and manufacturing relocation. However, both Asian countries still face structural limitations such as dependent on imported input and low domestic value addition. Therefore, sustainable grains depend on industry upgrading, technologically capability building, and stronger religion or cooperation. Overall, this study highlights that global economic stability is now highly interconnected and sensitive to geopolitical tension. That's all from me. Thank you.